have you ever stopped to think about this? Simple lines on a map, lines we can't even see day to day, can hold an incredible amount of power. I mean, they can literally change who holds political office in a country. All right, let's get right into it.
And that's really the big question here, isn't it? How on earth can drawing a line on a map completely change the outcome of an election? It sounds kind of crazy, but the answer tells you a whole lot about how democracy actually works on the ground.
So, to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to start with the basics. We need to talk about the fundamental building blocks of political geography. There's internal boundaries that keep a country organized. Think of it like an organizational chart for a whole country. Now, we're not talking about borders between countries here. We're talking about the lines drawn inside a state or a nation that help manage everything, from where your kids go to school to who you get to vote for. They're there to make a huge, complex place governable. And it's not just one big map with a single set of lines. It's actually a whole nested system. You've got the big, broad state lines, right? Then, inside those, you have counties. And then you zoom in even further and you get to the voting and service districts that really shape our local communities. Each one of these layers has its own job to do.
Okay, so why all the fuss about these specific lines, the voting districts? Well, it all comes down to a really fundamental idea about how we're represented in the US government.
Take a look at the US Congress. It's really a tale of two completely different systems working side by side. In the Senate, it's simple. Every state, no matter how big or small, gets 2 senators. Equal representation. But the House of Representatives, that's a whole different ballgame. It's all based on population. The more people you have, the more representatives your state gets.
And that is exactly why these district lines are so critical. If representation is based on population, you have to find a way to chop up a state's population into roughly equal pieces. We call those pieces districts, and each one gets to elect its own representative to go fight for their local interests. But here's the thing, people move, neighborhoods change, cities grow, or they shrink. So what happens then? Well, the system actually has a built-in reset button to keep things fair, and it gets pushed every 10 years. This whole process is called redistricting. After the national census comes out and tells us where everybody is living, states are required by law to pull out their maps and redraw the lines to make sure every district still has about the same number of people.
And believe me, this isn't just some boring technical exercise. It has huge real-world consequences. Just look at what happened in the decades after World War II. Tons of Americans started moving from the industrial north down to the Sun Belt. And you know what happened? Political power literally followed them. Northern states started losing seats in Congress, and those Sun Belt states started gaining them.
So, redistricting is supposed to be this fair, almost mathematical process that ensures everyone gets equal representation. But what happens when that tool, a tool designed for fairness, gets turned into a political weapon?
Well, that's when you get something called gerrymandering. This is when the people in charge start drawing those voting districts into bizarre, squiggly shapes. Not to make them equal, but to engineer a specific outcome and help their own party win elections.
There's a really great way to think about this that just cuts right to the heart of the issue. In a healthy democracy, we, the voters, choose our politicians. But with gerrymandering, that whole idea gets flipped on its head. It becomes a process where the politicians are basically choosing their voters.
So how does this actually work? How do they do it? It really boils down to 2 main strategies. 2 tools in the gerrymandering toolkit. They call them cracking and packing.
So on one side, you've got cracking. Think of it like trying to spread a tiny bit of butter over way too much toast. You spread the opposition voters so thin across many districts that their vote gets diluted and they can't win anywhere. Then you have packing. That's the opposite. You cram all of your opponents into just 1 or 2 districts, guaranteeing they'll win there but lose everywhere else.
Let's walk through cracking. First, you find a neighborhood or a city that's packed with voters from the other party. Now, instead of letting them be one powerful voting bloc, you draw the new district lines right through the middle of their community. You split them up so they become a small minority in 2, 3, maybe even 4 different districts. Just like that, their power's gone.
Okay, now let's look at packing. With this strategy, you basically decide to lose one district on purpose. You draw these wild, sprawling district lines that scoop up all of the other party's voters from a huge area and stuff them all into one place. Sure, your opponents might win that district with 80 or 90% of the vote, but you've surgically removed all their voters from the surrounding districts, making those much, much easier for your party to win.
And again, this isn't just some abstract theory.
Take a look at North Carolina back in the 1990s. The map drawers there created districts specifically to pack black voters, who overwhelmingly voted for Democrats. And the result was exactly what you'd expect. Democrats won those packed districts in a landslide, but the Republicans were then able to win a lot more of the surrounding districts where those Democratic votes had been removed.
So at the end of the day, why does any of this matter? Because these aren't just lines on a map. They have very real, very profound consequences for our politics and for our society as a whole.
I mean, think about it. The way these lines are drawn can single-handedly determine which party controls the government, and that, in turn, decides which laws and policies get passed. It can make social and ethnic divisions even worse by either splitting communities or isolating them. It just ramps up political tension and makes our elections feel less competitive and more hostile. So the single most important thing to take away from all this is that these invisible lines are one of the most powerful forces in politics. They don't just reflect who we are as a country, they actively shape our communities, they distribute power, and they can even affect the stability of the nation. Which kind of leaves us with one final, pretty heavy question to think about. When the lines on a map can pick the winners and losers before a single vote is even cast, who really has the power? The voters or the people drawing the maps?